This Brooklyn-born trainer has guided 8 different fighters from their amateur days to world titles. He is known for his clear, concise instructions and running a cool, calm corner. This has made him one of the most sought-after trainers in the fight game today. Many of his fighters call him Uncle Dre, but those in the business know him as Edgar Rozier.
Welcome to Untitled, Unboxed. With more than 40 years of experience in the fight game, our host, Doug Ward, will be covering every corner of the ring as we get comfortable between the ropes. We'll talk with both the lesser knowns and the legends, discuss boxing's rich history and current state of the game. We'll also look at today's latest innovations, equipment breakdowns, and insights you won't uncover anywhere else. Join us now as we take a look inside Untitled, Unboxed.
Andre, welcome to Title Unboxed.
Hey, how you doing?
We're great. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I've been very busy, and that's the only reason why it's been a while.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to everything that we've been working hard on, and let's talk boxing.
All right, I'm ready. I kind of want to start with one of my earliest recollections that you're associated with that has always stood out in my mind. We got to go back to, it's been over 20 years ago, but it was Silver Gloves, which I was helping coordinate at the time. And I remember you had a kid, I think Curtis Stevens was a kid you had at that time. And I think he was fighting heavyweight, right?
Yeah, that was actually, he fought heavyweight in his last year of the Silver Gloves.
That was it.
And Curtis, they used to call Curtis the J.O. God because he just ruled the Junior Olympic tournaments like no one else. And especially the Silver Gloves, his record was 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. His record was 13-2 with 13 knockouts.
Wow. He was one of the few guys to win that 5 times in a row, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Him and
exactly.
Ricardo Williams.
And Ricardo Williams, exactly.
Which is, you could only win it 5 times because you'd only been at 5 years.
Exactly. They had a carry year, though. I don't know how it worked out, but it always seemed like, okay, here's that carry year. Because it was like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Yep.
So there was one carry year.
Yeah.
And only Ricardo and Curtis did the 5.
Yeah. It's a great achievement. Well, it's funny you bring up that heavyweight year, the last year he was in it, because that's the one I remember the most. Because I remember there were 3 rings in there, and there was a big buildup between him and this other heavyweight. It was kind of like, Curtis was he was a puncher, and this other kid was kind of more like an Ali. So it was an Ali Frazier kind of thing. And man, that fight came on, and I swear everything stopped. Everybody moved to that 3rd ring, and it was just all eyes were on that fight. And I think actually he had Curtis hurt in the 1st or 2nd round, but Curtis shook it off and came back and ended up stopping. He stopped him in the 2nd round, right?
Right. He the build up to that fight was incredible. Tommy, he was knocking out his guys, and Curtis was knocking out his guys, and they just faced off, and it was a Region 2 against Region 1, and a lot of people were like, "Well, I can't wait to see this, and the other thing." And they started out fast, and he hurt Curtis with like an uppercut hook, and he got the 8 count, and then Curtis went at him again, and he missed the step and went through the rope. So they thought he had to hit him again. Yeah. So I was like, oh boy, here we go. When he came back to the corner, I said, "You all right?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I'm okay." He said, "I'm going to knock him out, Uncle. I'm going to knock him out." I said, "Okay, but you got to be careful. The kid can punch like you can." But it didn't matter. In that 2nd round, Curtis was a kid that was under the siege of, I'm going to get my get back.
He just walked him
and
down.
That's what he did. It was an incredible bout.
It was. I remember it so vividly. Amazing. And the electricity in the place.
And insane. Yeah. Insane.
It's funny. Everybody was watching. There were no cell phones back then. People taping the fight.
Right.
It was all eyes on deck.
Yeah. Everybody everybody had their big camcorders.
Yeah. That's been a few days.
A different time, a different time.
It's funny. I was thinking about that and the fact that there were no cell phones back then. And I wonder, what's your take on this? I wonder if that's had an impact on fighters in that nowadays you can go back, you can look at footage, you can study your opponents, you can strategize a little bit beforehand. Back then you couldn't. If you weren't aware of the guy and you hadn't seen him in the amateur boxing circuit, you were walking into an unknown. Do you think maybe that made fighters a little bit more mentally tough back then because they had that kind of that fearlessness, that resolve?
I would think, honestly, I would think so, because they had to work hard to be ready for the unknown.
Right.
And nowadays, guys, sometimes they get a false security because they've been viewing a particular opponent so many times that they think, oh, this is okay, I can beat him.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't work out like that. Yeah. So I think back in the days, without the added intervention of video footage and instantaneous recollection, you had to really be ready for everything that came at you.
Yeah, for sure. So was Curtis was the first kid you turned pro, right?
No, actually it wasn't. I had
really?
a young man named Vinny Posa. That was my first amateur kid that I turned pro.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he was a national kickboxer. He came into boxing, and he wanted to fight in the Golden Gloves, which he won. And he was just a really devastating lightweight puncher. He could punch, and he was mean at the same time. So that's how he entered into the professional ranks. And unfortunately, he went a little wayward, so we lost him for a bit. And but he could have went all the way. He really could have went all the way.
Yeah, that was an amazing time. I mean, you had that whole era was, you had Andre Ward, you had Timothy Bradley, you had Curtis. I mean, there was a lineup of just extremely talented fighters back then.
Unbelievable. And like you said, when you mentioned Ricardo Williams, he was one of the most talented kids that we've had. And unfortunately, he went wayward, and we lost him too. But it's so unfortunate to have that much talent be lost to the streets. It was crazy. Yes.
Shame. So, I mean, that happens a lot in boxing here. This kid's going to be the next best thing, but there are a lot of distractions. There are a lot of things that can get in the way. What, in your opinion, separates these fighters, these Andre Wards, Curtis Stevens, that they're able to transition from the amateurs to the pros, have such success, and take that talent with them? What's the difference between some fighters not able to do that, other than just getting distracted, getting into the streets, whatever, and those that do and those that don't?
Well, you basically said it. The distractions mount up, and they become unsurmountable. It's not easy to be out there in the concrete jungle and dealing with all the negativity that is running rampant, and try to be successful at the same time. Even when you have a young man who did get it all, like Ricardo, he really got it all. It's just the mentality that I want to be a part of the urban jungle, and no matter how much I had, I still want to be a part of that lifestyle, and that's very, very detrimental to their careers and to their actual lives.
Mm-hmm. It catches up with them in the ring.
Always.
Yeah. So what does it take if it's not, aside from the mental thing and the being able to stay focused on your career, what technically did you go through in your experiences to transition those amateurs into being good professionals?
Well, I mean, I have like a drill sergeant mentality, and I'm like an overseer and quote unquote overlord, and I try to make sure that my kids didn't get in trouble. I'm hard on them. I'm really hard on them, and sometimes it works, and sometimes no matter what you do, unfortunately, you can't reel them back in. Mm-hmm. But you never stop trying, because I never stopped trying. I can remember I had a group of young men. It was a group of 6 of them, and only one of them stayed the course. The others, unfortunately, got into trouble and went to jail. And and you stay on them until, you can't stay on them anymore. And meaning if you lose them, you lost them because you're getting a phone call saying they got into some type of trouble, and which is very, very disheartening. And it almost makes you feel like you failed, but you understand the streets is rough. You got to stay on top of it and keep pushing.
So being a disciplinarian, it's funny because when I talked to Kenny Adams, his answer was very similar, just that he was very strict with his fighters, and some fighters don't like that and they, find an out, but the ones that glom onto that, they become successful because of that.
Exactly. It's like the Andre Wards and the Timmy Bradleys. Timmy Bradley came from military family and the background, and Andre Ward was brought up by Virgil Hunter, very spiritual, very disciplined man. And I remember I used to always say Andre Ward was a old man in a young man's body, because he just seemed to have that maturity factor that the other kids didn't have. He'd walk by the kids if they were doing something they shouldn't. He'd say, "You shouldn't be doing that." And then he just keep on walking. I said, this kid right here, he's something else. An old man in a young man's body. And it helped him in life, as you can see, because his discipline and his work ethic drove him right to the top and made him one of the best fighters we've ever had.
Yeah, that's true. He will go down as one of the greatest fighters of all time, I think. I think he's still a little bit underrated for whatever reason. He's just a phenomenal talent.
I can't understand it. He really is. I just don't understand. And a fantastic person. So,
right.
I mean, you're getting the best of the whole package. So I don't understand boxing people. Sometimes I just can't relate.
I know. I hear that. So we talk a lot about transitioning fighters from the amateurs to pros. You've been one of the coaches or trainers that's made that transition successfully. Not all are able to do that. What adjustments did you have to make as a trainer moving from the amateurs into the professional ranks?
Well, basically, I tell people the pros and amateurs are different. They really are. The safety factor is like plus 10 in the pros. You have to make sure you don't get caught with lots of punches in the pros. You have to make sure you settle down to try to be more accurate and more articulate with your attacks. Mm-hmm. You have to work the body more. In the amateurs, you don't really get credit for body shots. But in the pros, a good body shot will put you on your butt. Yeah. So those are some of the nuances that you have to adopt and add into. But I've always trained my kids, and I've been lucky because they've been big punchers. It just manifested itself in the pros. These kids when you stopping kids with headgears and 10 and 12 ounce gloves on, it's going to be some serious action when the 8s and the 10s go on without a headgear.
Right. There's also, there's some coaches you hear obviously the stories and witness some of the things that happen. You got Angelo Dundee, who, Henry Cooper dropped Ali on his seat of his pants, and the infamous torn glove, and Dundee puts his finger in the little tear and makes it a little bigger to buy his guy some time in between rounds. Right. There's that story. There's, you look back at Jose Luis Castillo versus Diego Corrales, and Corrales he got his mouthpiece knocked out, and Joe Goosen just took a little bit more time to find that second mouthpiece that he needed. So there's that awareness. Is that something you learn as a trainer as you're going along, or is it something you kind of possess, that calmness? Where's that come from?
Well, everyone doesn't react the same way. I'm not really one for being overexcited in the corner, because if I show chinks in my stability, so will my fighter accept this, and he might feel the same way. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep it calm, cool, and collective. And you're always looking for any advantage you can get to make sure that your fighter is on top. Whatever you might do, like if you go up there, you might stay in the ring a little bit longer. Say they might have gotten buzzed or a little jolted. When you have that 1 minute rest, Sometimes it becomes a minute and 15 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
every little bit counts to carry
Yeah.
through on it.
Yeah.
I remember one particular fight, I kept yelling out, "It was a headbutt! It was a headbutt! It was a headbutt!" And finally, the referee absorbed. It wasn't a headbutt, but I said it so many times that he went with it. And then the judge said, "Well, I guess so. Yeah, it was a headbutt." So in that fight, being that it was a headbutt, after the fifth round, it went to the scorecards.
Yeah.
And we were in a good place. So those are some of the things that you have. It's just being smart and witty at the same time.
Yeah. Within the boundaries of the rules, but pushing.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Just a little, it's almost like a pinball machine. You rough it up a little bit before. You don't want it to tilt, but you want to, get that ball to moving where you want it to go.
Just enough. Bump it just enough.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as a successful trainer, coach, you a lot of people don't know you actually you had an amateur career, a pretty extensive amateur career. How did that help you as a coach and a trainer in teaching your fighters? Do you think that they benefited from you having had that experience?
Well, yeah, because you know what they have to go through. It's a little bit easier by telling them, "Look, I need 5 miles. I need you to do your 100 push-ups. I need 100 sit-ups and everything that's linked into building yourself and being prepared for competition." Mm-hmm. So it's so much easier when you actually done it. Now you can carry through on it and show them this is why it's necessary.
Yeah. Well, and you came up in a kind of a renowned area of Brooklyn too. That Zab Judah's out of there, Mike Tyson, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, all from that same general area, right?
It was actually like a 20-block radius. It's incredible. Yeah, we've had 3 world champions, Shannon Briggs, Riddick Bowe, and Mike Tyson.
Yep.
Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, a.k.a. Eddie Gregory, Zab Judah, Daniel Jacobs, Curtis Stevens. The list is like very extensive for that small area of property.
Well, you need a bottle of water and sell it.
It's the New York City housing water. That's what it
is. Sell it. But after you stopped boxing, you didn't really plan on being a trainer. That wasn't your ultimate goal, right? I mean, you kind of got out of the biz for a short minute.
Yeah, I left it. I was running a bunch of entrepreneurial ideas, and things were good. And then one of the kids in the complex that I lived in asked me to take him to the gym, and I was like, "No, I don't have time for it." And he kept asking me. So I said, "All right, Pedro, come on, let's go to the gym." And that was it. I started taking Pedro to the gym. I started taking my nephews to the gym with me. Curtis was about 5 and his cousin was 7. And
Anthony?
Anthony, yes. And we just kept going with it. Yeah.
And so they kept in it. They were kind of the grounding force for that.
Exactly. And then the numbers just started growing. At one point we had one of the best junior Olympic teams in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What gym was that?
And that was the Starrett City Boxing Center.
Yeah. Is it still around?
No. They actually closed it, unfortunately. And we had been around, and then we were working out of Saddam Ali's gym that his father made for us.
Yep.
And that's where we've been there ever since.
And where's that at exactly? Is that Bed-Stuy?
And that's in Bed-Stuy also,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the name
right next to Brown?
What's the name of that?
Saddam Ali Boxing Club, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So all your fighters, now when you go to camp, do they start there with you and then you go to training camp, or how's that work in your situation?
Well, what we usually do is we get ready for camp. We don't want to go to camp and waste time trying to get ready. So we get ready before, and then when we go to camp, we start perfecting and fine tuning.
Yep.
And go from there.
So who do
because
you
it's
have you working with right now in camp?
well, right now since we have the show on February 20th,
Yeah.
we've got a bunch of athletes in the gym, the entire card, including my only female fighter, who happens to be my niece,
Yeah.
Melissa Odessa Parker.
Yeah.
She's the main event on the card, and we're
Awesome.
fast tracking her. Yeah, we're fast tracking her to a world title. She should have a world title in her sixth bout.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and your list of fighters you work with is kind of a who's who of boxing right now. You got Joe Green, you work with Danny Jacobs. You go down the list and give us an idea of give everybody an idea of the fighters you got in your stable right now.
Right now we're working with Richard Comey, the former lightweight champion of the world. He boxes on February 13th.
Mm-hmm.
I also have one of the actual prospect of the year, the ESPN prospect of the year, and a hellacious puncher in his own right, Edgar, the chosen one, Berlanga, 16-0 with 16 knockouts, all in the first round. There's Ivan Golub, who's 18-1 with 14 knockouts. Joe Mac Williams, God bless, his mother passed away yesterday. So, all our heartfelt condolences go out to Joe. He's going to be boxing on the card, but he's 13-0 with 9 KOs. And the list goes on and on. I have some new talent, some young men who are coming up that are shining like a light. And it's just a fantastic time.
Well, that's quite the crew. You must have a good support system, good assistant trainers and guys that are helping you in the gym.
Oh yeah, the foundation for the team is Terrence Simpson. I've known him ever since Curtis and Joe Green were 8 and 9 years old, and he used to work for the Long Island Railroad. And he kept telling me, "When I retire, Andre, I'm gonna come and help you." And I would say, "Oh, come on, big bro. Every time I talk to you, you're retiring, and it's been 50 years since you retired. You never retired. Let's go." But he finally did retire, and he's been working with me ever since. I couldn't ask for a better teammate in our system. He is one of the best. And then I also have, without a doubt. I also have Gary Starks, my big brother there. He's out in Staten Island, and we work with a lot of fighters together. He trains Marcus Brown, and he helps me with Richard Comey and a few other fighters. And there's also Anthony Irons, aka the Blade. Right. He'll be training fighters soon. He's a fan. He was a great boxer as a professional. He's going to be an even better trainer when he starts putting together and working full time at it. And last but not least, there's Ralphie Vasquez. He's another young man who used to box, but he has a fantastic formula for training, and I can't wait for him to be back in the New York area where we could do what we have to do as a team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go back and talk about a couple of fighters you've worked with or in the process of working with now. And not to bring up an old wound, but you did work with Danny Jacobs there for a while. I guess I bring this up because I think it's a learning opportunity for the fighters and coaches that are out there listening and watching the podcast. Right. You and he did have kind of a parting of ways because after the Canelo Alvarez fight, you didn't get your usual percentage and you found that out by mail, not in person. And that was kind of the generality of the rift, right?
Exactly. And don't get me wrong. I don't hate Danny. He was with me a very long time, but I just dislike his actions. Right. And in saying that, if anything else was to go wrong, he could have just came to me and spoke to me and said, this is what it is. I haven't spoken to him since that point, but his manager and my very good confidant, Keith Conley, who also advises a lot of the fighters that I work with, told me that he wanted to talk and to clear the air. So,
right.
Not to carry any negativity, I said, okay, I'll do it.
Right.
I'll do it.
So you're maybe just disappointed more than anything.
Yeah, massively disappointed. Massively, yeah. It didn't make any sense, and I didn't understand the action. But like I said, I don't hate him. I love him for what he has done and what he has created in boxing. I just dislike his actions.
Right.
And that could have been easily just communicated. It could have been 1, 2, 3.
Well, and that's it.
So,
you said the lesson right there, and that's what I was getting at. Is like, I think it's so key for fighters and trainers to communicate on a regular basis. And I think as guys get successful and they get more people around them, that communication breaks down, and that's why you see that kind of situation happen. And that's maybe the moral of the story.
And unfortunately, I can give you a prime example. One of my favorite fighters, and not just because I trained him, but one of my favorite fighters is Sergey the Technician Derevyanchenko.
Yep.
And this young man is the nicest human being you'll ever meet. He's quiet, calm, considerate, and everything else, and a fantastic fighter in the ring. And like I said, when it comes to character, there's nobody that's better than Sergey. Sergey is one of the most kind and wonderful human beings I know.
Yeah. So your female fighter, let's go back to her. What's her name again?
Melissa Odessa Parker.
Okay, we'll remember that. Remember that name, everybody. It's interesting.
Yeah,
I've always... Go ahead.
She's right now she's 3-0 with 2 knockouts. She's boxing again on February 20th. We were trying our best to get a world title fight, but the sanctioning bodies have been giving us a really hard time. We're obeying the rules, but I thought she should have been given the title shot since we had one with the IBF, and they kept saying no, she didn't have enough fights. But there have been other athletes who have boxed with her same storyline, 3 or 4 fights, and they've been given the opportunity to fight for world titles.
Right.
So I was very disappointed in the actions of the IBF, especially the lack of communication, because no one ever really got back to us, except for, and I won't miss his name, Carlos at the IBF. He did get back to us, but Daryl Peebles didn't, and it was really, really frustrating because we're trying to move her and get her on the fast track because she's a very exciting, hard-punching bantamweight, and she's going to explode on the scene with or without that help, but we're going to get her to the top.
So how long have you had her? Did you have her as an amateur throughout her amateur career?
She came to me midway through her amateur career. But when she was with me, and I think it was about a 2-year span, she was undefeated in every event that we participated in. She won, I don't even know how many national titles. And she was just an exciting dynamo on the scene. And she got married and she had 2 beautiful children. And then she came back to the sport. And she said she wanted to go pro. So we started off, and she was one that boxed every month. It was October, November, and December.
Wow!
So she reeled off three wins, 2 knockouts, and now we got her back in February on the 20th. And since they said she had to have at least 5 fights before she fought for a world title, we're going to get her those 5 fights. And in July, we expect for her to be a world champion.
Awesome. We'll look forward to that. Do you notice any difference in training female fighters?
No, not really. It's you know what? I don't term it as training females or male. It's their characters. Some people are one way and some people are another. And being that I'm so close to my athletes, Melissa's like a niece to me, and And we go through it all the time. I mean, we argue, fuss, and fight always. But she knows that my goal is to get her to the top. And she works when she gets ready for it. She works really hard, and I think that she'll show the world how special she can act be.
Yeah, I guess I asked that because I always liked training girl fighters, female fighters, because I felt like they listened better. For one, they maybe didn't have this machismo thing about them.
About that one.
Really? Wait, she's listening. She might be listening to this or watching. You better be careful.
But you know, she does work hard though. She does. When I ask her to turn it up, she turns it up. So I can't ask for more than that. I really can't.
Well, and that's the other thing. I've always felt like the female fighters worked harder because they had more to prove. You know,
they always
and that's
do,
just my experiences. And plus they carry more weight in their hips, and so they sit down on their punches a little better. I just thought there were little nuances that I enjoyed training female fighters in the gym.
Well, I could tell you this, Melissa, she's 122 pounds, so she don't have lots of hips, but she do have a lot of power. So I don't know where it's coming from, but when she puts it out there, look out, here it comes.
Well, and that's fun to see. That will separate her in the fight game.
Definitely, without a doubt.
So let's talk about your other guy with power that you already mentioned, Edgar Berlanga, 16-0, 16 knockouts, all in the first round. And the knock on him is that he hasn't fought anybody yet, but I disagree with that. I mean, he just came off of I don't know, it was his last fight, but he recently knocked out Lionel Bellows, who I don't think's ever been knocked out before. Never
been knocked out. His last two opponents, people, boxing fans anyway, they want it all right now.
Yeah.
Like there's no gauging it. And if you go through the annals of time, all the great athletes were brought along a certain way so that they can reach fruition and be at their optimum capabilities and performance. Andre Ward took a moment to be Andre Ward. And it took so long in their program that when he fought in the Super 6, he wasn't expected to get past the first round. And I knew that he was going to win it because he's one of my favorite nephews. I said, he's going to take the whole thing. They brought him along perfectly. They gave him time to develop and on his skill and craft, and look what we have.
Yeah.
So I people will say, oh, he should. He has time. He's 23 years old.
Yeah.
He has time. He has time to develop, to sharpen his tools, to become that knowledge athlete in the ring without them thinking, oh, you know what? He's supposed to fight Canelo next week.
Yeah.
No, he's not. He's supposed to develop and get his skill level to be on par with those athletes, and then he can fight them.
Yeah, he's got time at 23 for sure.
Exactly.
And plus he also has a 15-1 guy on his record, a 16-1 guy on his record, and they might not be top contenders, but they still have some pedigree and they've got some, they've been through it a little bit. They have a little bit of experience.
Exactly. And regardless of the fact, he's still getting them out of there in the first round.
I know.
I mean, he comes to get you. He's a monster.
He got that power. Is that naturally? Is it okay? So let's go back to the old adage: is power born? Are you born with power, or can you develop it?
I always tell people, if you can't punch, you can't punch. You're going to have to develop skills that are going to help you in the ring. Like everybody can't punch. Everybody doesn't have that George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, the Marvin Hagler, just that punching power that will get you out of trouble at any moment, at any time. If you're not born with that, you can always make your punches a bit more accurate so that they can have a little bit better timing to catch somebody off guard. But to be a true puncher, you have to be born with it.
Yeah.
You have to be born with it. I could tell you, I mean, I've seen Curtis knock people out off balance. I'm like, how the hell did he do that? What? And you know, and I've seen Joe Green starch people right down the pipe.
Yeah.
I'm like, good God Almighty, what the heck? That's just true punching power that God has given you.
Right. Well, and Edgar has that power. I also like that he's methodical. He's not reckless. He's not getting guys out of there being reckless. He's just very accurate.
Right. We've been working like, I don't know if you've noticed when he finishes a bout, he'll do push-ups. And the reason why I make him do push-ups is because he did not follow through on our original plan, what I set him out to do. So, like in his last fight, he was supposed to do push-ups. He got over like a fat rat because they had evicted me because they claimed I had COVID, which I didn't. So he got away. I'm starting to think that Edgar sent a message to them so he wouldn't have to do his push-ups.
You were set up. Dang.
Yeah, I was set up.
Well, now
they had my back against the wall.
There you go. Now everybody will know if he's doing push-ups, he didn't follow the game plan.
Exactly. There you go.
Now I got to go back and watch his fights and see which ones he did push-ups in and which ones he didn't.
Everyone since every single one. He hasn't missed a beat yet.
You know, it's funny because you talk about your love for the fighters. And somebody on the back end of conversation I had with somebody recently, they talked to a manager that said, don't fall in love with your fighters. I said, well, that's not really a good philosophy to have because then you're not necessarily doing what's best for them. You have to be able to willingly be able to suffer a little heartache. And so how do you feel about that falling in love with your fighters thing?
Well, I mean, it's difficult not to care about somebody that you're imparting so much time, energy, and emotion into. You end up caring. You care about them because they're like your children. Literally, you take them to tournaments. They become professionals. You there fight after fight, making sure things are correct. You don't want them to get hurt. So it's hard to say that. I mean, I understand the adage because a lot of fighters are selfish. Yeah. And they just don't think about anybody but themselves. So the adage is basically true, but not for everyone. Not for everyone. And like I said, I've been fortunate to be on the better side, not the worst side, thank God.
Right. And you've been in the game for a long time. And you've also had some great mentors. I saw you post something recently about Brother Nazim. You know, what are some of the guys as you've come up through the ranks and had some success? Who's been there that you've learned some things from, and what have some of those things been?
Well, my biggest mentor in boxing was Emmanuel Stewart, Uncle Manny. Yeah, he was my biggest mentor. Every time he saw me, we talked about boxing. And he always had that wonderful word for me. I remember we fought in Canada. I'll never forget this. And Emmanuel Stewart came in, so we were in the back with all the fighters and the trainers. Of course, when Manny walked through, it was like, hey, look, you know, our training God is here. Yeah. And when he came in, he saw me in the back. I was actually with Daniel Jacobs. And he walked through everybody, came over to me, and he said, how you doing, nephew? How's everything? I said, I'm doing pretty good. I said, this kid here, you can give me a hard time, but I'm going to pluck him in the forehead and we get ready to go. And he said, this is my favorite trainer right here, this young man right here. And then he just walked right out. So everybody was like, oh, man, wow, you know. And I just sort of sat there with a smile. I was like, yeah, buddy.
There you go. That's about the best, the highest accolade you could get right there.
Exactly. It was a wonderful moment. It was a wonderful moment for sure.
Yeah. Well, you've got some shows coming up. Let's talk a little bit about the future. Let's talk about the shows you got coming up in Florida. and your upcoming schedule and what we can look out for.
Okay, so now we're starting February 20th. Once again, it's at the luxurious Caribe Royale Resort, and it's in Orlando, Florida. And we have 5 shows there. The first being, of course, February 20th. The second is going to be April 24th. The third is going to be July 3rd. And we have 2 dates in the wintertime. Yeah. And this is a series that is a brainchild of Richard Roman and the general manager of the resort, Amari. And what we plan to do is add more activity each year. So this year we're at 5. Next year we want to be at 7. And then the year after that, we want to be at 10.
Wow. So how can our viewers and listeners watch? How can they participate?
The event will be streamed on IFL/YouTube television, and it's free. You can go there, just log on, and it's free. And you're going to see some really fantastic bouts. All of the participants are either in striking range of regional success or very close to world title success. And this particular show, we have, once again, Joe McWilliams, Ivan Golub, and our main event, we are premiering her as that next superstar. And I'm not going to say woman or man, I'm just saying superstar. And that's Melissa.
Great. So for free, listeners, viewers can watch our next wave of superstars or potential superstars coming up.
Exactly. For free.
There, you can't
it's
beat
streaming
that.
For free.
You can't beat that. Well, I know we'll be looking forward to that. I love watching new talent on the rise. So other than that, where can our listeners and viewers follow you and keep up with your escapades, what you got going on?
Okay, you can catch me at Facebook, Andre Rozier, or you can catch information pertaining to what we're doing in boxing at Havoc Boxing Instagram or Havoc Advisory on Instagram.
Perfect. We'll be watching. We'll be following. Andre, it's great catching up with you again. We'll have to keep in touch, and I'm excited for all you got going on. It's going to be great for Florida and the sport of boxing in general.
Oh, thank you so much. Listen, it's been a pleasure. Let's not make it another 15, 20 years that we don't get together. And let's keep it alive. Let's keep it going. Remember, February 20th, we will be changing the face of this boxing game. We're doing this for the fighters, and we want to make sure that they get everything they're supposed to get. It's a new concept, but it's an old story. But we're going to bring it to life and keep it going in that direction.
I love it. All our title listeners and viewers will be tuning in and watching, and I'll be right there in front of the laptop.
Title boxing, strong as ever. Keep it going.
Love it. Thanks, Andre. We'll talk soon.
All right, sounds like a plan. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for watching this episode of Title Unboxed. If you're anything like me, you can never get too much boxing. So if you'd like to watch more episodes, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our Title Boxing YouTube page.